Beethoven is a composer, as you all know, who straddles various eras and was so unusual in the landscape of composers that I remember my music history book had a chapter on medieval music, one on Renaissance music, Baroque music, classical music, Beethoven, romantic music. You cannot outside so many different pigeonholes. You can't really pigeonhole him. He was a recipient of the classical era, and he was a maker of the romantic era in music, and he changed so many of the parameters that were held true until he came on the scene that it's hard to talk about him in holistic terms. But so there are many, many things that he changed, including, of course, we all know he introduced voices in the symphony with the Ninth Symphony, which was an instrumental work. He was the first composer to make a living as a composer. Now, the first work that he composed, the first of two masses, he only composed two masses, was the one that we will perform, the Mass in C, which was written in 1807. When you say a mass by a composer, what you're talking about is a setting of those 5 sections of the Mass liturgy, which are unaltered throughout the liturgical year. The Mass has many elements, and there are those that are dependent on the day on the liturgical calendar, the saints or the feasts or whatever. That's called the proper of the Mass, and then the ordinary of the Mass are those parts that are the same every day of the year. And of those, there are the spoken parts, the chanted parts, and the choral parts. The choral parts are 5, the Kyrie, the Gloria, the Credo, the Sanctus, and the Agnus Dei. And those 5 parts of the ordinary are what we call a Mass, what that composer set to music. So the Mass in C was written in 1807. It was actually on a commission. Prince Nicolaus Esterhazy II had this tradition, which was common at the time, where every year for the name day of his wife, whose name was Marie von Liechtenstein, for St. Mary's, one of the St. Mary's, I guess there's many feasts of St. Mary's, on September 8th, for her name day, he had a Mass composed and performed. And this was a tradition at the time, and so he commissioned Beethoven to write one. Now, Beethoven was a little bit nervous for several reasons. The principal one is that he had never composed a Mass. When Beethoven was commissioned to write this Mass, he actually tried to get his hands on as many scores as he could of previous examples of Masses. He asked his publisher to get him Haydn Masses and Hummel Masses and other Masses to study. And however, he also was Beethoven, and he didn't follow anybody else's beat. So Beethoven took an unusual path in composing this piece. He wrote a work that was in some ways simpler in style. In many parts, the chorus sings in unison rather than having 4 parts, which is powerful in its own way in some contexts. But in this case, it makes the Mass more intimate as well as simpler. I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. Harmonically, it's daring, it treats the text in unorthodox ways, uses the instruments and the solos in new harmonic ways, so it explores a lot of new paths. It's a very odd beginning. The bases of the choir start alone. There's one bar where the only thing you hear is a C, or the word Kyrie, in the bases. So this kind of intimate beginning, and then the whole chorus comes in, and it's unusual and it's intimate, and it is the opposite of grandiose.